All right. All right, I'd like to call our meeting to order. A roll call. All members of council are present, and I'd just like to start by saying we had a report out on a closed meeting we had this afternoon. Was just held in accordance with and as permitted under section 239(2) CH of the Municipal Act 2001. Which states that a meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Or H, information explicitly supplied in confidence in the municipality or local board by Canada, a province, territory, or a crown agency of any of them. So during this meeting, we received information and provided direction, and such information that was explicitly supplied in confidence under section 239(2) and provided direction to administration on potential land purchase matter. So now I ask, folks, a moment of silence. In particular, I know yesterday was the 22nd anniversary of 9/11. Many Canadians did lose their life in the Twin Towers, as you all know, and also just in reflection to the loss of the first responders who were sent in to help during that particular time, and those who are suffering from it as we go on. So keep them in your thoughts as we take a moment to remember that tragic event 22 years ago.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From
All right, land acknowledgement that we are on the land surrounded by water, originally inhabited by Indigenous people who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within the lands honored by the Wampum Treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Lenni and Lenape allied nations to peacefully share in the care of the resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, Ottawa, Potawatomi, Huron-Wendat, and Colwell First Nation, dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. To the members, any disclosure of pecuniary interest on the agenda as presented to you this evening? Hearing none, we'll have that duty reflected in our minutes. And when speaking of minutes, we have the regular council meeting minutes of August the 8th, 2023. And the recommendation is that those minutes of the regular council meeting as duplicated and delivered to the members be adopted. Deputy Mayor Bichetti, Councillor Jobin. Any errors or omission on those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We do have requirement for supplementary agenda adoption. Motion by Councillor Houston and Councillor Dorner. On the recommendation, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Move on to the consent agenda items. Members of council, we have 3 items to deal with. If I could have a motion to receive and approve those. Moved by Councilor Jobin, Councilor Houston. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So we'll move on to delegations. Our first delegation this evening, Essex Power Corporation, and gives me pleasure to introduce Mr. Patrick Casey, professional engineer and MSP and Energy Markets, and Steve Ray, the COO of Essex Power Corporation. Good evening, gentlemen.
Just okay, I guess it's on. It's kind of cozy. You could probably still hear me, but first of all, thanks to council for allowing us to be a delegate tonight to explain a very well-written, comprehensive report by Mr. Bartnick outlining a continuation or a pivot and a continuation of the utilization of a couple town-owned assets, being the Tecumseh Arena and a Manning pumping station. So this is, we put together 3 or 4 slides just to kind of highlight, and happy to answer any questions that council may have related to that. First, the IESO capacity auction. What is it? For the past 10 years plus, the generation facility at the Tecumseh Arena and more recently the generation facility at the Manning Road pumping station have both been participants in what is known as the IESO market, but it was in a program called Operating Reserve. And now we're suggesting that we move it to a more, I'll call it, friendly program to small generation facilities that are not major natural gas facilities, as an example, 100 megawatt plants, and more suited to basically being on a button for the province. Resiliency, particularly with climate change, and particularly with economic growth, electrification has become a broad topic right across the province. So the IESO has these programs where they like to basically make use of locally owned generation facilities. So it makes an opportunity for the town to get in the market or stay in a new market called capacity auction with those generators. So there are 2 commitment periods should those facilities participate. It's not around the clock like it used to be. It's from May to October 31st. That's known as the summer period, a little more intense, from noon to 2100 Eastern Standard Time on a daily basis. Those facilities are basically on standby. In the winter, similarly, November 1st through April 30th, from 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night, a 5-hour time span. During that time span, those facilities will be bid into the market. Most of the time, 95% of the time, they will never be turned on. But by making them available to the IESO, the town receives what is known as a capacity payment. So by throwing your hat in the ring and making your assets available as a resource to the province, there's revenue to be made. And as the report indicates, our go forward, it would be a 50-50 split with Essex Power in partnership with the town of those revenues. The auction is held annually. Yeah, you can go to the next slide there. Dispatches, the ISO, if you could, oh, no, right there. There are some tests. There are maybe between 10 and 15 times at an hour to 4 hours a piece that the generation facilities would run. They're not meant to be base load. They're meant to be acute need peaker plants for the ISO. I think I've covered the rest of that. If you want to go to the next slide. The ISO then settles on a monthly basis. We would in turn provide 50% of the revenues back to the town. Essex Power would be responsible for all fuel to be put back into the generation facility upon any dispatches or post any dispatches. And that is the nuts and bolts. I know the ISO markets are fairly complicated, but suffice it to say, the town has assets that can participate in a program that's tailored exactly for those types of assets, and it's a low touch on your facilities, and we can manage it all for you like we've done in the past. Essentially is the summary of what I've been talking about. All
right. No, I think it's, again, an extension from the old program. quite aware, you know, the old DG, you know, there was some revenue sharing and so there's a great opportunity. The other thing, members of council, those units need to be exercised. That's part of the regulations, and so forth. So if they're dispatched, that's part of the process of them being set up. I think the initiation. I think, Phil, we had a discussion, I think this afternoon, but if everyone remembers August of 2003, when we had that huge blackout, and this region was got back up and running fairly quickly, and it was part of the process was those non-utility generators, like, you know, you're looking at the arena and others, and the Hiram Walkers and the greenhouse industry, and there's a whole host of them. They put all their generators in service, and so a lot of those facilities are back up and running, and so forth. So the precursor of the ISO actually looked at that and said, hey, you know, let's figure out where all this generation is, and then and if it's called upon, we can use them, and so forth. So the good news is get paid for it, and then the even better news is if they're utilized, then Essex Energy is going to pay for the fuel. And so that's, I think, a great opportunity for us. And once again, our partners with, as you know, we own a good portion of Essex Power Corporation and so forth. So I would fully recommend that council moves forward on the new program. And again, I want to thank both of you for coming out this evening, and hopefully you can start tackling a lot of those assets across the county as well. I think there's a great benefit for all of it. Fair to move? Yep. Moved by Councillor Toniel. Any support? Councillor Houston, go ahead.
Thank you. Seems like a no-brainer. It seems like you're going to do all the work and we're going to make some money off of it. So it's good to me.
Essex Energy is leading this, our unregulated affiliate, and just like Essex Power Lines, one of our main strategic goals that we have is to continue to provide shareholder value in programs outside of just growing the equity of the company. So this is an example of a community program where we're trying to do just that, make some value for you.
Thank you very much for bringing this forward.
Go ahead, Councillor Houston.
Thank you, and I'll echo Councillor Toniel's comments. The one question I have, and I may have missed it here, but the agreement or what we're signing up for, how long of a term is that for? Is it 5 years? Is it 3 years?
It's the auction is yearly, just the cadence of the IESO's auction. So I believe we have the agreement structured. So it's a 1 year and then renewals from there on a yearly basis.
Okay, and my second question would be, down the road when we have our next big pumping station, you know, online, should we choose to, you know, enroll that facility in? Is that something we can do at that time, or just thinking down the road?
Councillor Houston, that is exactly the right time to do it when you're building those facilities, because there is certain switchgear and infrastructure that needs to go in. And if it can go in as a part of capital cost of the project, as opposed to a retrofit, it makes a heck of a lot more sense to just go. In the case of the two facilities that we're talking about right now, they've already been retrofitted. So there's no real capital up front.
So the third question to that would be, do we know on the next big pumping station we have, would it be already primed for, you know, something like this, or not?
Through your worship, good question, Councillor Houston. That's something that we're still looking into, looking at the size of the generator, because I think they want roughly about 1 megawatt. Manning is a little bit smaller than that, just slightly, but that's something we're looking into, and what those initial capital costs would be. But we definitely see value in the program, and if there's generators large enough that we're bringing online to work with Essex Power and Essex Energy to see if we can bring that forward as well.
If that's the case, then maybe when we're putting those two stations together, and while we're doing the storm sewer along Riverside Drive, maybe with a proper corridor, and that is one generator. So for both of them, I think would make some sense, because I think to achieve the capacity that's required. Any further questions? If not, on a motion, all in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimous. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks again for your time.
Okay, our next delegation is for the Regional Waste Management Initiative. I believe Phil, you're gonna bring that report up, and we have guests, Michelle Bishop and David Sundin. So you're more than welcome to come up, David. Might be some technical or legalese.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. As the mayor alluded to, I'm here to present really a summary of the report that is on the agenda tonight, Public Works Report 2023-57 with respect to the Regional Waste Management Initiative, giving you a project update and endorsement of the County Bylaw 2023-40. With me this evening is Michelle Bishop from USWA, and David Sundin is also in attendance from the County of Essex, and they're available for kind of a Q&A session after the summary here. So just as part of the background, March 14th, earlier this year, there was a report that was presented to council with respect to food, organics, and biosolids waste management update, as well as a regional waste management proposal. Stemming from that report, council did make a resolution that council endorsed the concept of a regional approach to waste management and direct administration to report back at a future council meeting with additional information on a regional waste management program, including the county's bylaw and the logistics of uploading the waste management service. So more recently this summer, on July 19th at the county council meeting, there was an update provided to county council on the regional waste management program and the logistics of uploading the service. At that meeting, county council raised some concerns on how the charge basis would be structured. For example, a general levy, a user fee model, or perhaps a hybrid combination of both. From that meeting, county administration went back and did some additional research and obtained some additional information. So on August 16th, 2023, at the county council meeting, additional information was provided. And at that meeting, county council passed bylaw 2023-40, which initiated the process to collect, deliver waste on a regional basis. Next slide, please. So county council passing this bylaw only starts the process. Section 189(2) of the Municipal Act requires that at least 4 of the 7 local municipalities comprising of at least 50% of the electors in the county pass resolutions in support of the county's bylaw before the service can be uploaded. So a different take here. So earlier this year, USWA did conduct a waste collection review. EXP Services Inc. was retained to assist in the review of broad waste collection. Their final report was provided to the USWA board on July 12th and County Council on July 19th. The report identified several conclusions and recommendations, including every other week garbage collection as a best practice to support waste diversion with respect to recyclables and organics and for potential savings. Clear bag garbage policies have been shown to be effective at diverting recyclables and organics across Ontario. Organic waste program should be for urban and rural areas. It better positions the county when the proposed provincial landfill ban on organics is implemented, and that is anticipated to commence in 2030. And lastly, regionalization of waste collection services is an accepted practice across Ontario. There's been a lot of questions about potential level of service. So the initial transfer of waste collection to the county would see the existing level of service be maintained for a time. Ultimately, a future standardized residential service would have to be determined. The Regional Waste Working Group, which is comprised of representatives from each municipality, is currently recommending that a future standardized service level could include every other week garbage collection, maintaining bulk large item collection, weekly organic collection, bi-weekly leaf or yard waste collection, and monthly white good pickup. In response to County Council's questions and concerns with respect to a funding model, so financial impacts to the local municipalities will ultimately depend on the funding model that is agreed upon and implemented. There are expected cost savings and administrative efficiencies with regional collection. A hybrid funding model was proposed by the county CAO and treasurer to the municipal CAOs and the Regional Waste Working Group. Factors that were considered as part of this hybrid funding model included existing contract pricing, existing service levels, subsidization concerns, existing catchment areas, and authority and decision making. The hybrid funding model would account for tonnage, households, and population data for each local municipality. The hybrid funding model would prove to be more transparent for the use of regional waste service. When calculating the county annual tax rate, there would be two tax rate calculations that would be made. County services, that not including waste services as currently calculated, as well as county waste services. Next slide. Continuation of the proposed funding model. So a homeowner would then see 4 tax rates on their bill: the local municipal rate, the county general levy rate, the county waste level rate, and the education rate. And upon review, Tecumseh administration is in favor of proceeding with the hybrid funding model as proposed by the county CAO and treasurer. The recommendations contained within the report before you this evening recommended that the report be received and that council support and endorse County of Essex bylaw 2023-40, being a bylaw to transfer all power of the lower tier municipalities of the County of Essex with respect to the collection of waste and the delivery of such waste in the County of Essex to the county pursuant to the provisions of section 189 and 190 of the Municipal Act. And further, that council accordingly give consideration to the first, second, third, and final reading of bylaw 2023-92, being a bylaw to approve County of Essex bylaw 2023-40. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And I think, like I mentioned before, Michelle is here, as well as Mr. Sundeep. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Phil, for sending the report, and thank you, Michelle and David for attending our meeting this evening. And just a couple of remarks that I want to make as the chair of USWA, and this has been, I guess, top of mind for a while now, and in particular from the previous council and up until now as well. And I think what initiated a lot of this was when we started seeing the existing contracts coming to an end, and some of the municipality and the contracts were coming in with 100% increase from previous 100%. I mean, I get it. There's some inflationary costs, but 100%. And so you can see the requirement and the competition for those companies to pick up, you know, our garbage. They're very few in between, and we don't have much of a, I guess, ability to look at building up competition, because at the end of the day, I think it's volume. When you look at 8 individual municipalities doing their thing, Does that make sense in this day and age? And then you look across the province, by lo and behold, we're the only municipality or municipalities, I should say, within our region that actually has all these multiple contracts and in dealing with it. And so when you look at what's being mandated by the province, especially with the organics coming, and at least 3 of the county municipalities have to start transitioning to organics by 2025, 2026. Does it make sense to do it all alone? And when you start looking at opportunities and the synergies, it doesn't make any sense in that regards. I mean, we've been very, very fortunate. USWA has been a great partner for us in managing I think one of our biggest assets, which is our landfill. And there's only one. We all share into that landfill, and the best opportunity for us is try to divert as much as we can, extend the life of that landfill. And how do you do that? Well, obviously, I think by regionalizing, I think this type of service makes a whole lot of sense at the end of the day, because any operator within those jurisdictions that would have to deal with the organics and that, now they got to purchase, specialized vehicles and so forth. So those are costly, and it takes time for us to manage that. And how do we start this, the whole program and so forth? And how much interest are you going to generate from other contractors in the province to come for individual little contracts? It doesn't make sense with the investment that they got to, bring forward. And so if we can aggregate those numbers, then it starts to make some sense. And then I think we need to add competition, because competition is good for it's good for the taxpayer. And, and I think for us, we need to get with the program in particular on protecting the biggest asset that we have and so forth. Right. So I'm obviously very supportive of what county has brought forward, and certainly what with USWA. And I think at the end of the day, I'm not saying it's going to be an easy transition. Folks, sometimes change is very difficult for some. But also, I think for members of council, remember as well, is that some of the programs that we've been very fortunate in the community, and I think is kind of our organics, our own dry organics, our leaf program and so forth. But nothing says that we can't tailor make that for our municipality. And so there's certainly some opportunities there. And I want to commend our CAO at the county level and treasurer when, especially with a lot of those questions coming ahead. And I'm sure Michelle had some say in it as well, has developed that hybrid model, which I think is very adaptable to the community. So I think it's a fitting report. It's a good report. I think it's good for the town of Tecumseh, and I really believe it's going to be good for our region as a whole, because it's only a matter of time that every municipality is going to have to be part of that organics program. We got one landfill, and you can't say one municipality you can put organics in there, and in the other municipalities you can't do it. It just doesn't make much sense, and so forth. So there is time before it marches on, but I think we need to start building towards a transition sooner than later. So with that, I'll open it up. Councillor Higginson and Deputy Mayor and Councillor Houston.
Thank you very much, and through you, and thanks for not only the presentation, but all the work that that's gone into it ahead of what we've seen, and certainly what County Council is what has seen as well. I think you kind of put it well, talking about changes that need to be made, and when we experience change, one of the questions that I look for is what's actually going to be the impact on our residents, on the taxpayers. And so I'm wondering if you can, I looked at this and right now we currently have weekly garbage pickup. We pick it up in a container. And so those will be two of the really noticeable changes, noting that there will be a period of time where no one will notice any changes because there won't be anything. And when organics comes into play, which we need to comply with in any case and is just good environmental policy, what kinds of changes and what sorts of things, maybe rephrase this, when the organics come in and we put in place changes like every other week collection and clear garbage bag collection, what do those two pieces go together to be able to facilitate things like where we might attract rodents and things like that? So which of those two pieces, how does putting those two pieces together help us, even though we may be looking at something that looks like a reduction in service, and how do we basically talk to residents about how it is not exactly a reduction in service, it's a difference in service?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McNamara, to members of council. So excellent questions, and certainly questions that we did pose to our municipal colleagues throughout the province, as well as to the consultant EXP. So I want to speak a little bit on the clear bag piece. So while it is a recommendation from the consultant, what is unique about both the City of Windsor and the municipality of Tecumseh is that you have hard-sided container policies. So as far as clear bags go, you'll notice in the recommendations from the municipal working group, the implementation of a clear bag policy is not something at this time that we think that should be brought forward to councils for consideration. We believe that those hard-sided container policies have been well thought out and, are well-established practices in the municipalities. And our goal will be initially to educate the residents on the new programs. And if at some point in the future, those diversion targets are not getting met, and as a supplemental approach that a municipality may need to take, that's when we can consider clear bags at that time. You'll notice also what you're not seeing in those recommendations is any sort of bag limits on a traditional waste. So that is another item that's different municipalities implement at certain times. Right now, we're saying that, there's no need to limit the amount of material that those residents do put out at the curb, because let's, work through the implementation of the organics program. So when we talk about a reduction in service, so we currently collect your yucky stuff, and that's what we call it now. We've coined the term yucky stuff every week. We're still going to collect the yucky stuff every week. So, your food and your kitchen scraps are going to go in that organics container, which we will be sourcing to have a closing mechanism. So there'll be a hard-sided container that is given to every resident that's participating in the program, and those will have a locking mechanism on them. So what that's going to do is mimic Tecumseh's experience with having those hard-sided containers that nothing is rodent proof, but we are certainly going to be sourcing items that are vermin resistant, if you will. So there's some really good practices out there with other municipalities that have already implemented those containers. So it would be a standardized container to all residents that has that locking mechanism. So as I noted, the yucky stuff's still going to get collected every week, and initially there won't be a change in your municipality. So those different service levels are something that may be implemented at some point in the future. So from a resident experience, right now, nothing's going to change. But the key to any change is that communication of the change. So as part of moving this forward, people may say, oh, 2025, that's a couple years away. First of all, we've got procurement to do, but second of all, it's understanding what our plan is and developing that strategy and that transition plan and how we're going to move that forward so that we use every opportunity to educate your residents. So it's working with each administration on how best to educate your residents of any potential change. So a year in advance, this is coming, getting into the schools, into your user groups, communicating to your residents, possibly through your tax bills, your social media, all of those existing resident engagements that municipalities are having to ensure that we're using those existing tools, but also some best practice tools to ensure that residents are well aware of any change that's coming in, and understanding that it's not the yucky stuff is still going to get picked up every week. It's what's potentially left that might be at some point in the future moving to every other week.
I want to thank you very much. I know it's always a level of concern, especially for people who are used to it, not only a particular level of service, but also the kind of trust that comes out of that particular level of service. So I can appreciate that there's a communications put in place and that we can learn from other municipalities as well. So thanks for that.
All right, thank you, Councillor. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Michelle and Mr. Sedin, for coming this evening. As you know, at the county, this has been up for debate, and there's a lot of angst in terms of some municipalities in terms of looking at this regional approach. But looking at being as a county council member, regional shared services is one of the things that we always talk about. I know we talked about at our strategic planning meeting as a whole county council that we want to be efficient, deliver services. So in terms of business 101, it's just an easy concept. Economies of scale, shared services, finding efficiencies. So that's kind of your foundation. Yes, there's a lot of questions, and I think those questions comes part of the education. So those that are still not sold on this idea could be just a matter of time. They need more time, they need more information. And so hopefully they'll come to an informed decision. But this to me is an easy one in terms of looking at 10 years down the line. This is a decision that we're making today that will have a 10-year impact. And so we can't just look at what am I losing today, because we're gaining weekly organics. So when you're gaining weekly organics, it's not that you're reducing the services, it's changing the way we collect garbage. And so in the schools, I can tell you, it's day in and day out. They talk about it all the time in terms of, the presentation that the UFSA presents at the schools. The kids, the youth buy into that. And so it's just a matter of getting this out to the general public. And I know in Tecumseh, we got one of the highest. Remember there was charts in terms of recycling. So we're ready for it. I think it's just a matter of, being leaders in terms of the region that, look, we can't continue, like the mayor said, each municipality tendering out and getting all these costs. Well, let's all do it together and as a municipality, local municipality, we're uploading it to the county. So it's reducing, some administrative work on our end here at the local level, but it's helping in the long run. So I'd be happy to move at the appropriate time, and I'll ask the clerk for a recorded vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Go ahead, Councillor Houston.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you for the presentation. I'd like to say that we need to be a leader, but I think our area we're behind times, and this to me is something that makes sense. I come from a world of consortiums and buying groups and people leveraging and looking to leverage their spend. And to me, I think this is an easy one for us as a region to work together and kind of drive some efficiencies out of that collaboration. And I can understand a little bit of uneasiness of change. And, I know I certainly appreciate the weekly pickup of green pickup that we have now. But I think we need to be leaders, right? And the planet isn't going to, last year forever if we don't take care of it, right? And this is just a small piece, I think, that we need to do and just take better care of, what we're putting in the ground. So, and I'm hopeful that through all the work that your team has done, the county's done, our administration has done, will make it an easy transition, for our residents. But this is something many other municipalities have been doing, for quite a few years, and we're behind on what they've been doing. And I did watch a lot of the county debate and, many of the other presentations, and I have an appreciation for, the thought and the work that the team has put in, because as the mayor has said, we do enjoy our weekly green pickup, but that is not something that if we decide to keep it, we're going to have to pay for it. Right. But I think, that we need to have a standard level between, the region in order to, best tender out and make best use of the public dollars that we have. So I'm certainly in support, and I'll be voting in favor. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Yes, thank you. And through you, thank you for the presentation. So you need 50% of the municipalities to collectively collaborate and agree with the hybrid tonnage funding module, right? So now what if you don't? Could there be an a la carte opportunity where those interested could partake in the program, and maybe over time the rest will? Sometimes change even is more effective in small steps. I don't know what that looks like.
Through you, Mayor McNamara. So in a perfect solution, all the municipalities will vote, and we do get that, what we call the triple majority. The concern, if those municipalities that do want to participate in a regional solution have, if that's the decision of the 7 county municipalities, is that the goal is to streamline those efficiencies and get as many tons out for procurement in the market as possible. And really, the 7 county municipalities represent about 50 to 55,000 metric tons in the market. And based on our neighbors in the city of Windsor and other municipalities, it's those levels of tons that really drive that competition. So, you're seeing, 4, 5, 6 proponents come forward and putting in a really good price. So it's not to say that nothing is possible, but if you look at it as a regional approach under the county umbrella, it's hard if you would have individual municipalities not part of that, because the mechanism for funding on that levy and all that hard work kind of goes by the wayside if it's not a group approach. The other concern that you have is just the consistent messaging to the residents. So if you have different municipalities, which is always a concern with different service levels, it becomes confusing to the resident. And then what often will happen is the residents kind of throw up their hands and say, well, I'm not doing this because it's too confusing. So really the goal is to have a regional approach where all 7 county municipalities are a team in this, and the residents have a similar experience, and promotion, education, communication is rolled out throughout, and we also gain those efficiencies. Part of the efficiency is sometimes removing those municipal borders so that those collection vehicles can optimize those routes. If you've got, say, a municipality in the north and the south that are in, but the people in the middle aren't, you lose those efficiencies and those economies of scale. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that point, because, now, for example, you could have a truck that's a third full and his route's finished, and then he has to go all the way and dump. If the border's just one, then we can maximize, the loads. And again, it's better, for the economy. It's better economically. It just makes a whole lot of sense. Any further questions or comments? Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Tonio.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So if all the 7 municipalities come together with this, are we all required to have the same parameters, like every 2 weeks yucky stuff, every once a week yummy stuff, and then recycle once a week? Does everybody have to have the same programming, or can we have different from here? Lakeshore might have twice a week for what they decide to have. You know what I mean? Do you understand my question?
Through you, Mayor McNamara. So the goal would be at some point in the future to align the service levels. But for right now, there would not be a change. But we did understand through our discussions with the municipal working group is that there are potentially a few outliers. And, you know, from an authority standpoint, we're never going to, you know, try to squash anybody's diversion. So if it was the wish of a municipality to continue to provide enhanced service for diversion, in particular, say a leaf and yard waste collection weekly, then that's certainly something that as the county initiative and the authority, we could acknowledge and certainly allow, you know, for discussion to continue that service. But that would be at an additional, if we decide that everybody gets every other week leaf and yard waste, but Tecumseh wanted to have every week leaf and yard waste, that's something that we could procure. And then that supplemental cost would just be borne by the municipality. But promoting diversion is something that we're pretty strong about. So.
Go ahead, Councilor Dorner.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I know there will be growing pains with this program when it's adopted in terms of what can and can't be placed in the garbages. Is there like a plan for like education as to what is going in there? Something for residents so it makes it simple for them?
Again, through you, Mayor McNamara, certainly the key to all of this programming will be the promotion and education campaigns. So really getting out there to the residents to explain exactly what is going to be allowed in the green bin program. Also an opportunity to get back out there and remind residents what belongs in their blue bin program and their red bin program, and what's in their leaf and yard waste program, so that really at the end of the day, people are left scratching their heads to say, what am I actually going to put in my garbage every other week if that's the decision of council at some point?
Thank you.
Councilor Houston.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. A question that just popped into my mind when you responded to Councillor Tonio. Moving forward, as I understand, our contracts uploaded, and let's just say it's $10, right? You'll then collect that $10 from Tecumseh to manage our program as it is. And then if we choose to add on any programs, that levy will come back to the municipality. My question is more if, you know, when everyone's a little bit different, right? We're paying for, you know, our service as it is, and that levy will be individual. And will it be based on the municipality, you know, by household, or is it, you know, I'm just wondering how when you go out to tender on, you know, X amount of tonnage, will it eventually be a flat rate if all the service is exactly the same, or is it by household because some municipalities are bigger or smaller? I'm just curious maybe how the math and accounting goes down the road.
Through your worship to Councilor Houston, very good question. So what was contained in the report, in Tecumseh administrative report, as well as the report to County Council. So the county waste services, by definition, would be calculated as a separate special area rate. It would establish a tax rate by the local municipality for its share of the regional cost based on its own tonnage and number of households, in relation to only its weighted assessment from all the other municipalities as well.
Okay, anything further? Okay, Deputy Mayor, you're prepared to move the recommendation and have the clerk take a recorded vote, and do I have support? Councilor Higginson on the motion, all in favor? Oh, sorry. Ahead of myself.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a point of clarification in the recommendation, the second recommendation, first sentence, If it's agreeable with the mover and seconder, I would ask that it be reflected to read and that council support, endorse, and consent to County of Essex bylaw 2023-40. Assuming that's agreeable to both the mover and seconder on the motion. Thank you. A recorded vote has been requested in regards to the question, and I will read the question. That report PWES 2023-57 entitled Regional Waste Management Initiative Project Update and Endorsement of County Bylaw 2023-40 be received, and that council support, endorse, and consent to County of Essex Bylaw 2023-40, being a bylaw to transfer all power of the lower tier municipalities of the County of Essex with respect to the collection of waste and the delivery of such waste in the County of Essex to the county pursuant to the provisions of Section 189 and 190 of the Municipal Act as amended. And further, that council accordingly give consideration to the first, second, third, and final reading of bylaw 2023-092, being a bylaw to approve County of Essex bylaw 2020-40. Again, as moved by Deputy Mayor Becchetti, seconded by Councillor Higginson. The recorded vote was requested by the Deputy Mayor. So I will ask the Deputy Mayor, how do you vote on the question?
Support.
Mayor McNamara, how do you vote on the question?
Support.
Councillor Tonio, how do you vote on the question?
Support.
Councillor Dorner, how do you vote on the question?
Support.
Councillor Higginson, how do you vote on the question?
Support.
Councillor Jobin, how do you vote on the question?
Support.
And Councillor Houston, how do you vote on the question?
And support.
With a recorded vote of 7 in support, none opposed, the motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you to our delegation. Our next delegation is the Hobie Fishing World Championship events. And I'd like to call upon Mr. Steve Fields, the Director of Fishing Teams and Events. Please come forward. I'm ready to put my line out.
Let's have some fun. If I may, just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Steve Fields. I'm with the Hobie Cat Company. Some of you may know that name. We've been involved in water sports activities and crane lifestyle since 1950. Hobie Alter himself started off shaping balsa surfboards and was one of the pioneers into the white foam you see in surfboards of today. That's his innovation. Over the years, we've had the Hobie Cat sailboats, which you see with the multicolored sails, stand-up paddle boards, hang gliders, and we've most recently in the year 2000 developed kayaks and a very exclusive drive system to leave your hands free for fishing and other outdoor activities, photographing and things like that. Hobie's had a long history of involved in water sports activities. Our very first sailing event was in 1976 in Hawaii. It was the Hobie 16 World Championships. And one of the unique things about the Hobie Cat Company is that there's very few sports in the world that are equipment-based where you can just simply fly around the world with your sailboat or your kayak or your surfboard very easily. And Hobie put all the boats on the beach, all brand new, made it a very level playing field. And then people from all over the world would come in and have a great time for 2 or 3 weeks in sailing. We'd have a true world championships. In 2011, with that same concept, I founded the Hobie Fishing World Championships, and it was founded in Australia with the same thing, all factory supplied equipment, and that enabled people from all parts of the globe to come in and compete on a level playing field. And we've been in China and the United States twice, and Sweden a few times. all over the globe. And one of the attractions is trying to find a location that travelers want to come with. I mean, we do have a fishing event, but it's also a destination that people want to come and see, because part of the event is the competition side, which is very, very important. But there's also a fact of seeing the world and also meeting other people and other cultures. And I think that's one of the successes of our championships. Our last event was in July last year in Amal, Sweden. We have been there twice now. It's just a fantastic location, and they're a very good host to work with. Canada is one of the places that we've looked at for a number of years, and we've had that slight hiccup during the SARS COVID time, and that has all cleared with us, which is quite good. And the other thing we're trying to do is have places that we can come on multiple occasions. And a lot of high-end sports do that same thing, whether it be MotoGP or Formula One, where you find a community that is accepting to what you're trying to do and the concept of a competition, trying to bring people to see a culture and a lifestyle they haven't seen before. It also means that we can build on that partnership and the relationship that we have and we're trying to develop here, and put a map and a timeline that, you know, kind of every 2 or 3 years we can come back to this great community. And that's part of the success in the formula here. One of the unique things that's happened recently is the managing partner and the basically management of the global company is now based here in Tecumseh. So we still have a base in Oceanside, California. That's kind of our home. We have a brand new manufacturing facility in Tijuana, Mexico. We have a facility in Australia, just south of Sydney. We have one in the Netherlands and also in Toulon, France. So we're a global company, which is now based here in Tecumseh. And that was one of the draw cards of direction of the new managing partner here. So our goal is to put about $400,000 worth of boats on a beach on the lakeshore here, invite people from, 19 to 26 different countries. Some don't speak English, but they all share one thing. It's about fishing. And it's a really good sport. The other thing we bring to it as well is best practice. I mean, there's a lot of high-end events here with your Major League Fishing, MLF. You have the BAS championships here, and they have a great format where you catch fish, they put it in a live well, and they drive in a boat. We do a live weigh-in, and that's great. With our kayak events, we go a step further, and it's all about preserving the fishery, which is extremely important. In case you don't know it, Lake Sinclair is the top 3 bass fishery in North America, and it's sought after around the world, and we have to protect it. We want to come back. Ours is a catch, photo, and release competition. As soon as that fish comes on board, we take a photo of it, part of a scoring system, and it's released right away. There is zero impact on that fish. And that's one of the messages that we're trying to do, and why it's so accepted to communities. And we talked about the green waste and moving forward. We have to protect the waterways. Something we introduced has taken a number of years, and with the help of the Daiwa Fishing Corporation based out of Japan, is involving the community. And that's one of the messages. And what we're able to do with one of our partners is teach kids about fishing. And we give away rod and reel combinations. In a mall, we had a competition, went to the schools came down, a select few. We had a coloring competition. We had some landmarks. One could be Chief Tecumseh, and you color it in. One would be a smallmouth bass. One could be the bridge. And we chose from that families, so their mothers, their fathers, their kids there. We gave these combinations away. And then we had an international competitor take them to the shoreline, show them how to tie a lure on, show them how to make that first cast. In a mall, it was quite amazing. People who have never fished in their life caught a fish. And the gratification for those who are fishermen here, when you catch a fish, it's quite spectacular. It's an achievement. And these kids have never been exposed to that, like a lot of us here growing up in the outdoors. So our mission is to perhaps educate a lot of youth today that this is a great waterway. Nothing wrong with catch. It's a great sport. It's a great pastime. I think it's a a very well-rounded person that gets outdoors. And if we can somehow play our role in the competition side to understand that they're bring in the community and teach them something, and maybe just put down that phone for a couple hours a day, I think that would be really good for the world, not just this community. So that is one of our messages that we're trying to do, is have a fun event. Yes, make it a camp championships, crown a world championship, but leave the community better off than when we came here. And that is our goal. I'd like to start off with a small little teaser clip. It's only a couple of minutes. I know you've got a very busy schedule, and I greatly appreciate you seeing me here. I flew up from Florida just to be here to answer your questions. So there's a lot of different ways we can do it, but this video clip will kind of give you an idea of what we bring to the community, a little bit about it is, and no PowerPoint presentation, nothing I can say will do the optics of this here. So I thank you for your time to watch this, and then we can go through a PowerPoint and answer questions. So thank you very much.
For the first time in history, Hobie Fishing Worlds will be revisiting a venue which has already proven itself as a world-class fishery. This year's tournament will be returning to Sweden for Destination Ormal, where the world's best will compete for the most prestigious title in kayak fishing. Ormal, Sweden, a picturesque town of just under 10,000 local residents, is nestled on the shores of the vast Lake Vänern. Lake Vänern, the third largest lake in Europe, holds some of the largest pike we've ever seen, often well over 1 meter long.
What a beautiful fish. That one's going to be hard to beat, I think.
It's vast. You can't see to the other side. It's like an inland sea, and the water is crystal clear. There are islands, rocks, reefs, pinnacles. It's got everything. It's just a really interesting place to fish.
You can't beat this place. It's the most amazing fishing I've ever been on, and gorgeous. The scenery, the food's amazing. The venue's unreal.
Make sure to visit hobiefishingworlds.com for additional news and information.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, anglers away.
Come on, stay here.
That's just a small teaser. Every single boat is filled out with their country flag, which is very important. The boat you're seeing there is produced by Hobie. It's a 14-foot boat, and it has a Mirage drive system, and it replicates a small aquatic animal, much like a penguin, rather than a prop. So it doesn't do any damage to weeds or shoreline that way, and it folds up very easily. But again, the idea is that all the boats are provided, everything's the same. You bring your rod, your reel, and your game face on, and you go home very first Canadian world champion. We have two gentlemen here that have been Mr. Tim Percy and Richard Offner. I believe you had a hockey team here at one stage. And they've been to 4 world champions, and they can attest to what we're trying to do. We can see the PowerPoint, or we can just ask questions. I think the audio or the visual is there, and I'll leave it to you what you'd like to do. I'm just, I recognize your time is very important. That's all.
No question. Any questions or go ahead, Councilor Higginson. I want to see you in one of those there.
Well, I guess I didn't have a question, but now I do. Can I go in?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
I can fit. Thank you. I'm in. I want to thank you very much for introducing us to Hobie. I'd not heard of it. And not only is it a kind of a beautiful thing to watch, but your enthusiasm for it and how you kind of the storytelling that goes into what really happens here is I think Tecumseh might be your place. So I'm excited to see it come here, and thank you very much for thinking of us and for coming here, traveling all the way from Florida. I guess I wouldn't apologize for the weather. It's been kind of nice here, but welcome, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to say the community is very much, we want people to come down to see what we're doing and be involved and see this little small town, which is just beautiful. People come here and travel. I mean, they can go a lot of places in the world, and you've seen a small collection of the countries we've come to. We don't do one and dones. I want to build a partnership and get the education program first and foremost. It's important that we teach the youth of today about outdoor living in life, and they will come to appreciate how good this lake is for fishing. And it's just, you know, most of us grew up with grandfathers and uncles and cousins and fish, and I think that's lost in society. I hope it's not. And if the Hobie Cat Company continue its history since we started in 1950 of, you know, being the best water sports company in the world, we have a duty to hold up why we're watermen, as we call it. So thank you, and I can't wait to see you on a boat. We had the council in a mall do that, and they were never been in a canoe. They're not a fan of water, and the first thing they do is they're going to fall out. One of the council people hopped in the boat and just disappeared. And she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know I was supposed to come back." And it was so good. And she got her camera out and she's, "Well, this is great. Can I buy one?" Well, of course you can buy one. I'm here to sell stuff too. But the point is, look at this resource. It's just beautiful. So thank you. And I will make sure you are on one straight away, and anyone else. We'll have a great time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, I love fishing. I mean, it's you know, you mentioned about the phone, and that the phone goes away, and you know, you just immerse yourself in with nature. And I think what I like the most is the fact that we look at ourselves as a fairly green community, and very aware of obviously climate change and a whole host of issues. And we've come to really appreciate, you know, one of the greatest assets is the Great Lakes. There's nothing like it in the world. And we got a mini lake, but it is such a wonderful sport lake. I mean, the fishing is one, the sailing. I mean, you go there, well, it's September now, and the regattas, I don't know, there's 14 sailing ports within just this area. And when you see all those beautiful, colorful sails out in that lake, and it's really, sometimes we take for granted in terms of where we live and so forth. But I hear stories of folks, you know, even from Northern Ontario, talk about how wonderful their lakes are, which they are. I don't deny that. But I said, you know, they said, "Come on up, you know, go fish. And, you know, we've got beautiful walleyes." Yeah, we got that too. "Oh, we got beautiful perch." Yeah, we got that too. "We got largemouth bass." Yeah, we got that too. And so I think this is a really good partnership that I think we can have here as well. One of the things that we looked at that Lakewood Park is also looking at increasing tourism, making it a destination point. It's 75-acre park. It's a beautiful park, and I'm sure you've seen it, Rich. You live too far from it, and so forth, and really learn to appreciate it, and so forth. We're building hotels, guys, and we got another one coming. You know, so we can house our guests, you know, into our community. So the sports tourism piece is huge. It's a huge factor, and we need to take full advantage of that. And the county is, we're known as the Sun Parlor of Canada, and a tremendous opportunity. And so I don't know when the date is and so forth, but I'm sure you're going to allude to that. But another point too that I want to make, and a little bird just whispered that in my ear, but maybe a great opportunity as well for us to work with our Indigenous population in the area. I mean, they are great supporters of supporting our land and our water. And, we've come to build a really good relationship with Walpole Island as well as Caldwell First Nation here. And, I think there's a great opportunity for us to really, build a tremendous partnership and make Tecumseh a wonderful return engagement as we move forward. So I'm enthusiastic about it. I mean, like I said, any type of fishing for me, whether you're on shore or on a boat or 30 below zero on ice or 85 degrees in the sun. I mean, I'm out there. I love it. So this would be a new approach. Obviously, I've never gone into the hobby craft itself, but it looks pretty interesting, in that regard. So I'm sure that there's so many out there. So if we get stranded, somebody will come and get us. But or maybe they won't want to come back to shore. They're having too much fun. But thank you, for coming out today. But I think there's some tremendous opportunities here for our community. I don't see any downsides to this. I just see upside, and I really appreciate you. Well, first of all, choosing Tecumseh as one of your homes, and then looking at our community as one of the hosts. That'd be wonderful.
Thank you. Just quickly on that same point, one of the mission things here is every place we try to go, we bring in the local cultures. Like in Australia, we have the Aboriginal community, and we were there with didgeridoos and local food. China was the same thing. There was culture, was the dancing. In Louisiana was the embracing the Cajun cooking that they have down there, and we bring it in here. The one thing that really has stunned me a little bit is, like in Australia, we had big banana prawns, we had emu, we had kangaroo, we had, it's actually English, pavlova, it's a dessert. In Louisiana, we had the Cajun cook, and we had real Chinese food in China. Amal, Sweden, we had moose burgers and a little berry that's only grown in Sweden. And when coming here, they go, what's the local food? And they go, pizza. And I'll go, what?
This is the capital of pizza.
Well, all right. So I was educated, but having the chief involved, and I've spoken with Beth about some of the traditions they do, that is part of this culture that we bring in that community, and the story that brings in here, and the food is part of it. So I just wanted to touch it. That is in our forefront of doing that. And I do love pizza.
Okay. Yeah. Councilor Dorner.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm excited for this. It's great to see this type of interest in Tecumseh, especially in Lakewood Park. I was curious as if you were looking for any help from local groups or like anything like that for volunteers, or even sponsorship from local businesses.
All the above. So it's a fairly logistics nightmare. Most of the crew I use are not from the USA. It's mainly from Australia and Europe. We've got some very, very good team players. Even though it's a small event, you're really looking at kind of 60 anglers is what we try to do. And that's based on logistics of shipping boats around. There's that side of the coin, but also very good at their craft, the skill of putting these videos and things together. When the funding's there, we do large programs on Hobie Outdoor Adventures, is on the Pursuit channel there. That's a dollar and cents thing. And I'm not promising any of that. We've got to start with this one. But the volunteers are very good. We have a lot of them involved. And again, it also teaches them about some sports management for those in different school facilities of how to run an event, or to look out, the risk factors and SWOT analysis and all that. We bring them together and say, here's what you're doing, here's where you need to help. And we get them involved in it from that education about that asset that you have there. There's a business that's out there on a whole number of fronts. And the other one too on then is making sure we have access to water in the future. And that park has that access. Our Hobie sailing died when we lost access to water and off the beach sports. So to grow this green community without motors, we need access to water, and you're going to find a lot more people on the water. It's a beautiful way. Volunteers, bring them on. Assets and funding, help me. So thank you for the question, sir.
Yeah, because with that, the deputy mayor and I are with the Optimist Club of St. Clair Beach, and I know they're always looking to volunteer for events. So we'll
Awesome.
float this their way. Okay.
They can unload a couple truckloads of boats, no problem.
Okay. Perfect.
Go ahead, Rico.
Yeah, on that note, I'm retired. I'm offering my services to you. So anything you need, I love donating my time in the community here. So we'll get in contact. I'll get in contact with you and I'll be available to help you guys out.
Councilor Houston.
Thank you, Your Worship. As the mayor had said, thank you for choosing Tecumseh. And when I saw Hobie, I knew right away. I've sailed ever since I was a little boy, and my uncle had introduced me to sailing. So been around Hobies quite a long time. I can't say I've been on a Hobie kayak, but I look forward to the opportunity. And I do know where there's a money hole of bass out in the lake because I catch them all the time. And I've got photos on my phone that I could show. It's a little far to go on a Hobie. It's about to be a half hour out, but we'll make it, and I can show you where it is, and I can share because there's a ton of fish out there. Yeah. So, but I wish you all the success, and I know the community will welcome you, and this will be a great event for you. So, thank you.
It's the first time that I've actually heard a fisherman tell you where his hot spots are. Usually, I don't know if you should trust, I don't know if you should trust that or not. He might be sending you on the other side of the lake. Oh, sorry, Councilor Jobin.
Thank you through. I just want to thank you as well for coming here this evening and sharing this with us and bringing it here. And I could listen to you all night. I feel like I need to hang out with you because I need some calmness. And I thank you. And I look forward to seeing you again next year.
Thank you.
So I guess you're saying you'll share a pint. I think at this stage here, if we can bring Ms. Geniak's report forward and that.
Thank you, Mr. Fields, for your amazing presentation, and thank you, members of council, for your support. The recommendation we're bringing forward tonight in CRS 2023-15 is that the information provided in this report be received, and that council give favorable consideration and grant relief from the outdoor special events policy to the request to host a signature event, this championship at Lakewood Park North and Lakewood Park South, from Tuesday, June 25th, 2024 to Sunday, June 30th, 2024. In the special event policy, it is required for us to come to you in this manner in order to seek permission to access both north and south of that park for any type of signature event.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Riquetti, supported Councillor Higginson. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's unanimous. And also, I would recommend getting in contact with TWAPI, our Tourism Windsor Essex, Pelee Island.
Yes, Mr. Palmer is here this evening, and he will be working closely with Steve and the team to make those types of connections.
Especially on sponsorships and other opportunities as well, because this is a great event. So, it's world class. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Mr. Palmer is also our liaison with TWEPI, so he's connected there as well.
All right, excellent.
Does that mean I have an event?
That means you got an event.
Let's party. Hobie style party coming up.
now we're gonna get back to reality and park the fishing for a little bit, and then mind you, this is good news too. So anyway, this is the easy one, the pre-budget consultation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. And I was hoping I could catch Mr. Fields and ask him if he would help me with this presentation. I think that would help, but he exited pretty quickly. You might have seen this coming up next. But good evening. And, I'm pleased to present the 2024 pre-budget council consultation. So this, we use this opportunity in advance of our budget preparation to allow really to provide council with an update of where we think the proposed budget might land this coming November, and also to allow council an opportunity to provide some additional information to administration in advance of budget development, which is right around the corner. So this next slide will lead off with our strategic priorities, and I'm going to hand it over to our CAO, Marg, to address this slide. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. So this is our first budget under Council's new strategic plan, and it will be incorporated into department work plans and the draft operating and capital budgets. The three overarching strategies are presented on this slide. And the first is sustainable growth. And it talks about achieving prosperity and a livable community through sustainable growth. The goals, just to remind council, under this strategy are to increase the town's population through new residential development and infill, to create growth opportunities for business and industry, and to keep Tecumseh a livable community, and also maintain fiscal responsibility while investing in infrastructure. So a very important strategy for us with the coming growth anticipated in the town. The second is community health and inclusion, which is to integrate community health and inclusion into our places and spaces and everything we do. So through this, we aim to enhance public services to make the town more accessible, encourage and celebrate diversity and inclusion, and keep the town a safe place to live. And then our third strategy is to enhance service experience, focusing on our customer service experiences and ensuring that we provide excellence in customer service, supporting Team Tecumseh with a healthy and inclusive workplace, and sustaining the excellent quality of services that our citizens have come to enjoy. So this is the foundation upon which we will build the operating and capital budgets for 2024. With that, I'll hand it back to you, Tom.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, so this next slide speaks to the budget timelines. So our budget and financial reporting timelines as approved by council through our council report FS 2023-05 are presented on this slide. Preparation for tonight's presentation commenced early August, and departments have recently been issued packages to commence with their requested budget development. Requested budget review meetings will take place during the last half of October. Department CAO and finance meetings will occur during this time period. So this exercise culminates in the development of the proposed budget, which will be presented to council at the regular council meeting of November 28th. Budget deliberation dates have yet to be set. However, we'll follow the proposed budget presentation and it will likely occur in December or January, allowing for potential budget adoption as early as January 23rd, 2024. Public engagement, as per the council report, is currently slated for September 13 to October 13 and has taken the form of a budget survey. So past engagements have historically occurred during the budget development timeframe. So that's mid-September to mid-October, with the intent that survey results could be used during budget development and incorporated in the proposed budget. Historically, the survey has not garnered great response from property owners, and as not being statistically representative of the community at large, cannot be used to represent the opinion of the majority of taxpayers. Administration is currently working on a new public engagement process where the Place Speak platform will allow property owners to submit questions or comments on the proposed budget, so allowing for council administration response and consideration during the budget deliberation process, so prior to budget adoption. So we expect to have some budget training information as well as video clips of the budget presentation available on this platform. It is expected that public engagement period would then shift to something like November 30th to December 20th. However, will depend on the budget deliberation dates. And so we will provide an update once deliberation dates are set. So with the next slide, we speak to our budget development approach. So council adopted strategic priorities are the focal point of the budget development process. During budget development, departments focus on program and service delivery. So what will it cost to deliver the programs and services at service levels that council has approved? In doing so, respect for taxpayers is always a factor. Administration will prepare a budget that will deliver programs and services as efficiently as possible. COVID-19 has been a factor in the past 3 budgets, however, will not play a factor in 2024 budget. Budgets will be developed for business as usual. All COVID grant funding has been consumed to date. And again, once again, the impact assessment cycle was postponed. So property assessment valuations continue to be based on the 2016 current value assessment. So the 2016 CVA was intended to be used for tax years 2017 through 2020. Due to COVID, province-wide property revaluations that were to be based on January 1, 2019 valuation date and used for tax purposes for years 2021 to 2024 was postponed year to year and once again for the 2024 budget year. So this slide shows the approved budget for 2023, which had a 3.82% increase to the municipal levy net of assessment growth, which translated into a 3.86% tax rate increase. So at that time, we projected a 2024 municipal levy increase of 4.35%. Projected levies beyond 2025 and beyond were expected to fall around 2 to 3%. The final phase of the town's organization review 3-year implementation plan was planned to occur in 2024, mainly explaining the expected spike here in 2024. So on this slide, we summarize the budget pressures and drivers. So in the top half, what we have is what we anticipated to be drivers for this year at the summary level. So this was produced last year around this time. And then on the lower half is what we have is basically an updated version. So the pre-budget exercise is intended to get administration thinking of the 2024 budget in advance of the budget development process, to identify drivers that may have changed since last year's forecast and or identify any new drivers that may influence the 2024 budget. Administration has completed this exercise and now project a 2024 levy increase of 5.15%, which is 0.8% greater than what was projected at this time last year. The tables break out costs by 3 main categories: operating expenses, life cycle capital reserve allocations, which support capital expenditures, and assessment growth, which is our main driver of revenue. 2024 projected levy increase. So I have to point out there is a typo. The assessment growth of 450,000 should be 1.64%, not 1.46. So all 3 categories project greater levy requirements, either through higher projected expenditures or lower projected revenues. The following several slides will provide detail that supports these figures. So with respect to operating revenues, the main driver identified here is assessment growth. So we had projected assessment growth for 2024 to be around $450,000. However, have revised that figure down a bit to 400,000. So although development activity and potential is still quite positive, recent macroeconomic events, in particular the rapid increase in lending rates, has slowed development and therefore assessment growth a bit. So with respect to operating expenditures, so noted on this slide are the main expenditure drivers. I'll speak to some of the more notable ones. Staffing enhancements are primarily with respect to implementation of the town's organization review and are detailed in the next slide. Contractual increases for employees, along with an estimated inflation increase for benefits, amounts to around $350,000 or 1.28% increase to the levy. Storm sewer flushing. This provides for an annual allocation for a flushing program. This is consistent with our asset management plan best practices. To date, we have been addressing storm sewer flushing on a one-by-one basis, as opposed to a methodical fixed budget approach. Contracts, outdoor maintenance, that's with respect to recreation, and increase to recreation contract services budget to help address costs that are now more regularly incurred due to major weather events. Utilities we have listed here. So this is a placeholder for new amenities, primarily splash pads and washrooms planned for construction in 2024. That's primarily for water, wastewater costs that we would incur. Others listed are generally inflationary increases to some of our bigger expense line items. So garbage collection and disposal. So a collection is based on CPI, which is last couple of years been around 5 to 6%. Policing contract increase represents a nominal increase for the OPP budget. And there's an allowance for increase to our insurance and software costs, which are two expenditure types that have seen higher than average inflationary pressures. So on this slide, we detail the staffing costs. So the organization review positions are the supervisor transportation. So this figure of 87,500, it represents phase 3, part year implementation. Similarly for the business analyst, this was planned for our phase 3 or year 2024, and this represents a part year implementation. Similarly, again, with the IT help desk, this is phase 3 implementation in combination, offsetting reduction with an offsetting reduction to part of the IT co-op student budget. And the customer service receptionist. So this is part of a phase 2 implementation last year. So this is the remaining budget. PNC, we have the business partner position. So this is recommended and adopted in principle through the HR service delivery review and partially implemented with the 2023 budget. So this position was to be filled mid-2023 and is currently posted. Senior building inspector. So this was recommended through the building services review of 2022 and partially implemented with the 2023 budget. This has been posted earlier this year with no success, currently being reviewed prior to reposting. And the arena and park students, this represents additional hours included as outlook year increases during the 2023 budget process to gradually increase hours to meet after hours service delivery. So there are some operating drivers that are not yet quantified. So these could present additional amounts or when the proposed budget comes around, or they may be outlook items, but we've got them as identified as operating drivers for 2024, not yet identified. So the first one is the QP 70213 contract. This expired in December of 2021. Negotiations are to commence later this month. There's a non-union compensation review. So this is a regular review conducted every 3 to 5 years. So this is due to be undertaken during 2024. We've listed the fire and community safety master plan here. So this is currently in the final stretches. Is expected to be complete this year, and that will include some recommendations. We've included records management. So this process review was recently completed and included several recommendations. Legislative Services Department is working on addressing an implementation plan. So that may include software, staffing, or other. And we've also listed other ongoing process reviews. So there's payroll process review. So we've currently closed our RFP for HRIS payroll time and attendance software. So that should be coming hopefully in the near future. And there's continuation of implementation plan of IT service delivery and disaster recovery recommendations. So we've also listed education and county levies. So this makes up the remainder of a property owner's tax bill. So it doesn't necessarily affect the municipal levy, but we do include it here because we like to speak to the overall property tax that our property taxpayers will face. So with respect to life cycle and capital, so life cycle, we have included a $243,000 increase, which represents an approximate 3% increase to what we allocate today. So this is really a modest increase that is considerably lower than the construction price index and the consumer price index that we're currently facing. So it also supports, this increase also supports our life cycle annual target allocations. So we update this annually and includes annual funding deficits for several reserves, including our storm life cycle reserve, fleet, and fire apparatus reserves. Overall, our life cycle program is pretty healthy. However, there are some categories that are projecting deficit balances within the next few years. So that would include storm and fire equipment. For the new infrastructure levy, we're showing a $200,000 increase that was included in the 2023 budget for outlook year 2024. This will get our annual allocation to 2.15 million. We have an annual target of 2.35 million. This annual target is generally updated every 5 years, usually in sync with the DC background study update, and that is to be completed in 2024. So outlook years, so this would be years 2025 and 2026. So with respect to revenue, so we're expecting assessment growth to be fairly strong despite recent slowdown. This $400,000 figure could end up being very conservative should development areas pick up momentum. So, there's the Housing Accelerator Fund program that which the town has submitted application towards, so that could potentially be an added catalyst. We've listed the IESO market participation for town generators. So we had a report just in the delegation earlier today. So that should we pursue this, and it sounds like we will, could project annual revenue of around $100,000 per year. On the expenditure side, we have collective bargaining agreements for QP 7021, 702.2 and 702.5, which expire in December 2024. We have regional organic waste collection and disposal, which will be introduced in 2025. And again, we had a presentation of that earlier tonight. There's the remaining balance of part year staffing implementations for the supervisor, transportation, and business analyst positions. We've also listed parks and recreation amenities. So this is added amenities, and extended service hours are expected to apply upward pressure on operating budgets. We've also listed internal legal office support with the TBD here. So we've introduced the town lawyer to the town senior admin team. So we anticipate some level of support costs to effectively bring certain legal services in-house. And we've also got the stormwater environment compliance. So this is also to be determined. So this is maintenance program similar to that of water and the DWQMS program, which has been mandated to municipalities, and program details and costs is yet to be determined. For our life cycle and capital outlook years, so we're showing an estimate of $250,000 a year towards the life cycle program. So it is reasonable to anticipate annual increases to address target allocation deficits, inflation, and our growing asset base. The OSIF grant we've got listed here. So this is a pretty significant grant that we've been receiving annually from the province. And this is intended to help address the municipal infrastructure gap. The allocation in 2023 was greater than in years past. So that is positive news. 2024 allocation has not yet been announced. New infrastructure levy, which I spoke to earlier. So we will reach our current annual target allocation of 2.35 million in 2025. But again, we do expect to update that target with the completion of the DC study in 2024. We've also listed a couple other big studies that were completed here. So the CIP infrastructure. So this is a major project that influences funding sources like the new infrastructure levy. And then we have the storm drainage master plan. So this included 140 million in recommended projects. And we've currently commenced on one of the larger projects, being the Scully, St. Mark's, and PJ Cecile stormwater pump station improvements. We also, there will also, in addition to the storm drainage master plan, there is also the Old Castle storm master plan, which is nearing completion, and the wastewater master plan update, also nearing completion. So we include this slide here just to give a reminder of the town's funding model for life cycle and capital. So the life cycle funding model includes reserves that are established by asset type, and they are intended for the replacement of existing assets. Annual life cycle allocations require adjustments due to added or deleted assets, inflationary increases, or enhancements to existing assets. The new infrastructure levy, so this levy was established in 2015, and it provides funding. It provides for a funding resource for new or enhanced assets. It is the complement to the life cycle program. The total annual budget allocated to capital reserves in 2023 was $10.06 million. So that is a significant amount of the town's 27 million general tax levy. So the budget process establishes amounts to be allocated to reserves. Actual projects to be undertaken in any given year are recommended through department 5-year capital plans, which will generally follow the annual budget process in January or February. 5-year capital plans for public works and parks will follow the direction of council from the March and May 2002 capital plan review. So this slide details water and sanitary rates. So the 2023 rate study was just recently completed. It calls for annual increase to fixed and variable rates of 3% for both water and wastewater. Consumption trends seem to have stabilized. So this is following several years of reduced consumption trends. Reduced consumption trends, along with less than anticipated growth, resulted in reduced amounts transferred to the respective reserve funds. So that does impact capital project funding. Despite declining consumption trends the past several years and lower than anticipated growth, reserve funds are in decent shape. They're both in the positive, which is good and has not been the case always. So sanitary had been in a deficit position for many years, now is in a surplus. So although those surpluses look pretty good, a couple of examples of projects that are coming in the near future. So we have submitted to DMAF 5, the July 2023 stream. So that could add a Cedarwood sanitary pump station project. So that's estimated anywhere around $8 to $10 million. The ISIP Green grant that is towards the Centennial Woodbridge water main replacement. That's a $3.5 million project that we've been awarded grant funding towards. So generally these projects are pretty large dollar projects. So on this slide, we list some water and wastewater drivers. So in water, we've got a couple of annual programs that we plan to continue with. So there's the water main replacement program to methodically replace all cast iron infrastructure, the cathodic protection program to extend the life of existing metal infrastructure and contain water main break expense. With respect to wastewater, so we want to reintroduce an annual flushing program. So we had this at one point. So we're going to reintroduce this year at around $125,000. This is consistent with recommendations of our asset management plan. So we were able to kind of postpone that program because of grant funding that we received through the CWWF grant and I think it's OSIF grant. So we were able to advance that flushing program, but now we want to reintroduce the annual program. We also have listed here sanitary treatment costs. So this service is provided by the city. Costs have increased the past 2 years by an average of 20% annually. So this is much greater than in the past, where annual increases averaged much closer to CPI, so 2 to 3%. So this could be partly due to weather conditions and infiltration. However, it has been experiencing cost increases for chemicals and treatment processes. So we are anticipating a higher than the usual 2 to 3% annual increase. Sanitary sewer model update. So that is expected later this year, and this is likely to include recommendations for system improvements. North Talbot Road and 8th Concession Road sanitary service extension. So this is continued phased approach to sanitary expansion in the town's south end near Old Castle. New this year, we've got the Little River Pollution Control Plant. So which is the main treatment plant for the town's wastewater. So the city is initiating a process for plant expansion. The town has a perpetual agreement with the city for wastewater treatment services, and that agreement includes cost sharing for plant expansion on a 75-25 basis. So the town to bear 25% of plant expansion costs. And we've also got the MECP, Consolidated Linear Infrastructure here. So this is environmental compliance approval. So this is a new initiative recently downloaded from the province to municipalities. It is expected to produce annual system maintenance programs that will require an annual operating budget. And closing out the presentation, so we include a few stats to consider. So with respect to water and sanitary rates, we have the comparative rates for 2023. So you'll see the town of Tecumseh sits with lower than average costs for these services as compared to our neighbors in the region. And on the next slide, we show our 2023 comparative property tax, water, and sanitary costs. So these are calculated based on a residential home assessed at $250,000 with monthly water consumption of about 20 cubic meters. So overall, Tecumseh has the second lowest total cost in the region. And on this slide, so we just highlight a few reserves. So we have the tax rate stabilization reserves. This is used to support one-time expenditures, which helps to keep our annual fluctuations down. It also would be the town's funding source for any unexpected expenditures, including major weather events. Best practice is to have a reserve at 10 to 15% of the annual levy. 15% would translate to about 4.1 million. So we're sitting at 3.4 million at year end 2022. So we're in pretty good shape for this reserve. The new infrastructure levy, so we don't have a target for this one. We have a target allocation, but not a target amount. We do plan to update the annual target allocation with the updates, the DC update background study. The retirement benefits reserve fund, the balance, this is based on the balance sheet valuation as provided by our actuarial review, shows a balance of 11.45 million. So we currently have around 2 million in our reserve fund for this. So this is invested in One Equity as financial need is longer term in nature. We do expect to earn greater returns through equity markets. And lastly, we've got a slide for discussion. So this concludes the presentation and provides council with an opportunity to ask any questions you may have and or provide any additional direction or information to administration in advance of budget development.
Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Mr. Kisco, in terms of the impact of the one slide that talked about postponing, who decides to postpone those values year to year? I know it was 2020, the last one we did, and it's saying it's postponed to 2024. And then do they use the market value of average home sales of that year? So you know how the prices were up and then they went down, and do you know how that works? Then I have another question after that.
Thank you. It's a good question through the mayor to the deputy mayor. So the province decides when that update will happen. So MPAC did have their work prepared, and they were prepared to do an assessment or revaluation for 2021. And that would have been based on, it was planned to be based on January 1, 2019 current value assessment. So that would be sales information as of January 1, 2019. And that would have been used for tax years 2021 through 2024. So due to COVID, and of course there were wild market fluctuations, I don't know if that played a factor or not. However, the update, the revaluations were postponed on a year-to-year basis. We've only been informed on a year-to-year basis of whether they would update it or not. So, you know, we were told once again that for 2024 budget year, we would continue with the 2016 current value assessments. So those are, so really we're using properties valued as at January 1, 2016, but that's for all properties. So it is relative. But that's also when, you know, when we speak of an average property valuation of 250,000, sometimes that seems, you know, out of touch with current times, and it is, but it is based on 2016 valuations.
And just one more question in terms of reserves, the post-retirement benefits, is that the plan eventually one to kind of terminate, you know, basically there are no more post-retirement benefits for new employees, correct? So eventually that's going to slowly go away one day?
Through the mayor to the deputy mayor. So this is an obligation of the town. So it's part of our actuarial exercise that we conduct annually. So what they do is they come up with an obligation, the town's obligation to provide retirement benefits to employees that are eligible to receive those retirement benefits. So those employees hired after certain years, I believe it's after 2006 for non-union and after 2010, I think, for union, something like that. So employees hired after that point are not eligible for retirement benefits, but employees hired before that are eligible. So we are required through accounting standards to account for this obligation. Not everyone sets aside funding to provide for that. So we do have something set aside for that. Currently, we fund retiree benefits through our operating budget. It's currently at around, it's approaching $200,000 a year. So we do anticipate that annual amount to grow probably significantly over the next few years. So it's, you know, it's in our interest to build up a bit of a reserve to help offset annual levy pressures.
Thank you. And I appreciate the timelines. It gives the public opportunity the next month to be able to provide their input, and we'll look to continue with the process. So thank you again for all your work and your team.
Councilor Dorner.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor. On your slides there, I saw a $9 million deficiency for post-retirement benefits. Can you please ease my anxieties about a $9 million deficiency in that? Also, yeah, I have another question after that. Wait.
Sure, and through the mayor to Councillor Dorner. So, yeah, so this is the town's obligation as calculated by our actuaries. So it's a figure that's intended to show the total obligation for benefits for our retirees that would be eligible to receive those benefits. So currently we are incurring some retiree benefit costs. It does flow through our operating budget. $11 million would be like the total expenditure calculated at this time using actuarial figures. So we can expect to incur those costs over a number of years into the future. So it's really as long as our retirees live and incur benefits. Hard to say how long that will last. It is prudent to set aside or establish a reserve fund that could help us in years where those figures might grow significantly. So it does look like a daunting figure, but it's not something that will hit us in the immediate future.
Understood. And then just another question is with continual increases to our budget, can you go over why the budget was not a top-down budget to better control and predict the future increases?
Sure, through the mayor to Councillor Dorner. So, yep, and I will think Councillor Dorner gave me a bit of a heads up for this question because so this, some budgets, some organizations will prepare a budget top down. So they, for example, they might say, I want to see a 0% increase or a 2% increase and make it work. So, that is an approach that can be done. So at the town, what we do is we approach the budget process from a program, service, and delivery perspective. So we have council direction on what programs and services to deliver and at what service levels. So it's our job then to come up with a budget that will deliver those programs and services at those service levels as effectively and efficiently as possible. And so that's what we do to build the budget. Now, having said that, so that's, in an ideal world, everything works out and we come up with a budget and it serves to deliver the programs and services and it's at a rate that the taxpayers can afford. So, at the budget, when we deliver the budget, that rate, the council may determine that rate may be more than the public can afford, or it may be in line with what the public can afford and can be expected. So those are the types of things that, if we would address during deliberation period, or actually, or we could also incur at this time. So if we were to receive direction from council, for instance, to pursue a rate increase that might be at a certain target.
Understood. Thank you.
Sorry, any further questions or comments at this stage here? Then just a motion to receive the report from the treasurer. Councillor Jobin, Councillor Houston, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. We have communications items A through F. Could I have a motion to receive? Councillor Higginson, thank you. And Councillor Houston. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. There's no action. Yes, there is action required. Sorry. On the CN rail dated August 14th. This is. Sorry. Somebody say something? No, okay. CN Rail dated August 14, 2023, National Rail Safety Week. Resolution is something that we support on an ongoing basis, in particular where we've seen what the rail fatalities, we've had a few of them on the rail system. So if I could have motion to support. Councillor Higginson, Councillor Tonio. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Thank you. Updates from county council and boards. I don't know if you have anything, Deputy Mayor, you want to bring up. Obviously, for me is as a member of the USWA board, obviously you had the meeting here today in terms of that seems to be the agenda of the day. It's just looking at the regional support for waste management.
Other than that is just the construction weekly updates that the county provides. Want to thank administration for resharing those on social media. And also wondering if possible, part of this update, I know some council members may want to look at all the minutes, if we can maybe post the minutes of the County of Essex under this agenda item. So it's there
for information.
And then if there's anything Tecumseh related, the mayor or I can kind of highlight those, but that gives them a good flavor of what the meeting was took place for other items. Thank you.
Yep. And also an opportunity for any members of council who sit on different boards, like obviously IRCA, if there's anything you want to highlight or bring forward. BIA, I know we got the minutes and so forth, and so feel free to certainly weigh in. So this is kind of a new item that we put on here, just to keep our residents informed as well of what's happening outside of our little domain. Okay, we'll move on to committee minutes. We have the PMP committee, August 8th, and there's a recommendation that Tuesday, August 8th, the minutes of the Policy and Priorities Committee as duplicated and delivered to the members be adopted, and that the attached council staff relations policy, alley closing and sale policy of sale of surplus land policy and social media policy presented on August the 8th, 2023, Policies and Priorities Committee also be adopted, and further that bylaw 2003-09 being a bylaw to establish procedures for the sale of surplus real property be repeated. Oh, repeal, sorry, not repeated, sorry. It's been a long day. Okay, repealed. Moved by Councillor Tonio and supported by Councillor Houston. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, that is carried. The Council Business Improvement Area, August 21st, 2023 recommendation that August 2023 minutes of town business Tecumseh Business Improvement Area as we're duplicated and delivered to the members be adopted as presented. Thank you, Councillor Houston, and supported by Councillor Dorner on those minutes. Any questions or comments? I'm hearing none. All in favor? Opposed if any? That's carried. Reports. The report our Chief Administrative Officer, People and Culture. They have it's on the CAO PC 2023-04 Crossing Guards lunch hour service. And I'll ask Ms. Drulart to bring the report forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to bring this report forward. So as detailed in the report, currently the town provides crossing guard services to 7 locations within the community. Currently, 4 of the 7 locations receive lunch hour service in addition to the regular morning and afternoon shifts. As many of you know, the traditional school schedule included a 1-hour full lunch and 2 15-minute recesses. However, in the last 5 to 10 years, schools have been adopting what's called the balanced day, in which instead of the traditional schedule, there's 2 45-minute breaks, which in essence, each 45-minute break is divided between 20 to 25 minutes for eating for the students and a 20 to 25 break for outside. So the last of the schools in our community that have the current lunch hour service transitioned to this balanced school day in 2021-2022 school year. So in the 2022-23 school year, People and Culture, along with the crossing guards, agreed to monitor the levels of utilization of the crossing guard services during the lunch hour that was traditionally offered. And it's been reported to us and through observation that the services were not being utilized. It was very low, and it was mainly used only by a handful of older students. So it was generally agreed, and it's the consensus to bring forward the recommendation that's contained within the report. So I'd ask that the CAO report to CAO PC 2023 entitled The Crossing Guard Lunch Hour Service be received, and that the recommendation to eliminate the lunch hour service of the crossing guards at the location identified in the report be effective October 10th, that it be approved, and further that this change in level of service be communicated to the administration of the affected schools. Take any questions.
All right, thank you. Report. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I'm prepared to move the recommendation. I'll speak to it.
All right, thank you. And support, Councilor Tonio. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Drulart, for bringing that forward. I know, the schools, when they went to the balanced day, there is no longer students going home for lunch. It's a 20-minute healthy nutrition break in the morning, coupled with an outdoor break. And so I'd say the majority, 95% do stay. So there's very minimal students going home because they can't. It's only 20 minutes. So I agree with this report. And again, coming back with this, we have to think of other ways of accessing funds to help, keep the kids safe before and after school. That's a whole different story. But based on this report, I'd support.
Further questions or comments? Councilor Higginson.
Just a quick question, which may be a little bit adjacent to this report. Crossing guards are funded by the municipality. Has there ever been any conversations with the ministry or whomever about sharing costs with transportation? I know from the school board what the answer is, but I'm trying to get at something.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding in the time that I've been here, we are funding this 100% out of the budget. I believe there's been ongoing discussions. We are not alone in this, in municipalities wanting to advocate for a different funding model.
Thank you for that. And I wonder if council would see fit to send a letter of support to those comments about sharing costs, whether we send that on behalf of us too. I know it's not going to go anywhere. I've sent letters to him before, but I'd like to advocate for a shared cost model. Whether or not it goes anywhere, I'd like it to be shared with him. And so with some support from my colleagues, what we can do is advocate, and hopefully we may get a response one time or another.
Well, I would say hold that thought, and we'll deal with the motion at hand, and then under new business, you can bring something forward. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. All right, our second report is also CAO PC 2023-05, the COVID-19 vaccination policy suspension.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as detailed in the report, the current COVID vaccination policy by the town of Tecumseh was approved by council on September 8th, 2021, and has remained in effect as originally approved and has not been revised since 2021. As detailed in the report, since that time, there's been a number of updates to provincial mandates, medical guidance, municipal policy, and case law since September of 2021. And I'll hit the highlights there in the report, but provincial mandates in March of 2022, the province of Ontario did remove all COVID-19 provincial mandates, and those specifically enforcing that organizations had to have a mandatory or vaccination policy. Similarly, the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit has updated their guidance to match those mandates. It is worth noting, and as detailed in the report, as of May 2023, the town of Tecumseh is now the last municipality in the region to have a COVID-19 vaccination policy, as the County of Essex fully rescinded theirs in May of this year. As well as detailed in the report, there's been a number of updates to legal precedent and human resource case law that would affect this COVID-19 policy. So therefore, it is recommended that council receive this report, CAO PC 2023, and that is recommended to suspend the current COVID-19 vaccination policy dated September 8th, 2021. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ullard. On the recommendation. Thank you. Moved by Councilor Houston, supported by Councilor Tonio. On the motion, any questions or comments? Hearing none, none in favor. Opposed, if any. That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, Community and Recreation Services, CRS 2023-17, Healthy Aging Strategy. Ms. Geniak, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. It's our pleasure to bring this report to you today in support of the 2023-26 Strat Plan Community for Everyone, which identifies one of the strategic priorities as community health and inclusion. One of the goals within that strategic priority of council is to enhance public spaces to make the town accessible to everyone. And when we started to think about what that meant for the CRS, Community Recreation Services Department, we understand that both the Government of Canada and the Province of Ontario are committed to supporting older adults through programs, services, and funding programs. Many municipalities throughout Ontario have also developed similar strategies specifically to support older adults in their communities. Why I'm speaking about older adult populations specifically with regard to this strategic goal is that currently our older adult population sits close to 25% of the total population. And it's projected that this demographic will be the fastest growing cohort in our community over the next 10 years. So in fact, based on the data from the 2016 census, there were 9,294 residents over the age of 56 in Tecumseh. So in order to support the growth of the older adult population at such scale, a healthy aging strategy, will assist the town of Tecumseh and community organizations who are serving this demographic, understand the unique needs and requirements of older adults, and will also identify common guidelines and common standards to achieve improved outcomes for this cohort in our community. As mentioned in the report, a strategy like this could inform existing or new spaces and programs and services, which could become more age-friendly. Things such as outdoor spaces, buildings, transportation plans, housing plans, social participation goals, respect and social inclusion, civic participation and employment, communication and information, community support, and health services. I've been in consultation, Mr. Palmer and I, with the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility, and they're very supportive of our undertaking and conducting this work. We would be one of the remaining communities in Windsor-Essex who do not yet have a similar strategy such as this. We expect to lead this work ourselves internally with community-wide consultation, a review of similar strategies from other municipalities. Parks and Recreation Ontario actually has high five principles for healthy aging programs. Some of you may be familiar with the high five principles that support children and youth programs, of which our town is compliant. We're also looking at consulting with the Public Health Agency of Canada's Age-Friendly Communities program, as well as continuing to work with our colleagues at the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility. So knowledge gained throughout this consultation and engagement process will identify sustainable, long-term ways in which the town of Tecumseh can be an active participant in helping our older adult residents increase social connectedness, improve their mental and physical well-being, and support a better quality of life right here at home. So we want to start some formal consultation and engagement processes at some point this fall and work into 2024 to develop some sort of a strategy, very high level strategy for council's review and consideration, depending on the findings from the process. We will continue to consult with the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility for any funding programs that may become available in 2024, both to consult the development of the strategy itself and any other programs that might be coming online or on stream to further support of older adult populations in our community. So with that, I'll leave it for questions. And the recommendations this evening are that CRS 2023-17 entitled Healthy Aging Strategy be received and that the development of same be approved.
All right, thank you very much for the report, Ms. Jan. Any questions or comments on the report? Okay. Support moved by Councillor Houston, Councillor Tonio supports. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. All right, back to you, Mr. Kitsos. Financial. This one here is a little rosier.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Council Report FS 2023-07. And administration recommends that this report be received and that year-end surplus transfers be approved as follows. So $150,000 of operating surplus to our sick vacation pay reserve per our 2022 year-end estimated obligation, $200,000 operating surplus to post-employment benefits reserve to be invested in One Equity to contribute towards our 2022 year-end obligation deficit, $400,000 operating surplus to our tax rate stabilization reserve to bring this reserve to approximately $3.8 million, close to our target of $4.1 million. $384,497 operating surplus to the infrastructure reserve. $90,011 of our capital fund surplus. So of that, we are recommending $60,000 to the tax rate stabilization reserve. So this is our small equipment 2023 approved budget carried forward to 2024 for purchases not fulfilled at year end, and the remaining $30,011 to the infrastructure reserve. And for the rate supported surplus, transfers to be approved as follows: $444,994 of water operating fund surplus to the water rate stabilization reserve fund, and $269,809 wastewater operating fund surplus to our wastewater rate stabilization reserve fund. So administration has conducted our year-end budget variance process, which has resulted in a tax-supported surplus of $1.224 million and a rate-supported surplus of approximately $715,000. Primary drivers for the tax-supported surplus include investment income surplus of approximately $1 million. So this is in part due to steep interest rate hikes during 2022, combined with higher than anticipated bank balances. And this resulted in bank interest revenue of $980,000 greater than budget. We also earned an investment gain on our one investment portfolio of $83,000. So investment income can fluctuate greatly year to year. We do take a conservative approach with regard to the amount of investment income that can be used for operations. So our 2022 budget allows for $380,000 of bank interest income and $320,000 of our dividend income to be used towards our operating budget. Any balances above those figures are transferred to reserves. We had a grant revenue surplus of just shy of $500,000. So we were able to defer some of our COVID-19 relief funding from 2021. So this was not anticipated during the 2022 budget development period. So that amounted to $145,000 of funds that were recognized in 2022. We were also successful with grant funding in excess of budget for the federal summer student programs, as well with grant applications during the year for operations reviews towards one-time event programs and the special transit grant in support of our on-demand pilot project. User fees and permit charges ended up with a deficit of $240,000. That's largely due to two major land developments that were anticipated to occur in 2022, but have been delayed to 2023. And with respect to expenditures, there was a significant surplus to salaries and benefits of over $300,000 due to several lengthy temporary staff vacancies. This was offset by increases to our benefits costs. So with respect to our rate supported budget, so that is for water and wastewater services, the operating budget benefited from user fee surplus of almost $500,000, resulting from greater volumes of water used by our residents and lengthy temporary staffing vacancies, as well with the rate supported services producing a surplus of just over $200,000. So there's a pretty exhaustive list of operating variances included to this report as attachment 2. So I will not go through that report.
I think we've all read them. Just give me the bottom line.
And with respect to the town's capital expenditure budget, so a list of all capital projects that actively incurred costs during 2022 is included in attachments 3 through 7. And those detail the approved budget, costs incurred since project start, and project status as of December 2022. In total, the lists include 130 projects with total project budget of $63 million. Attachments 3 to 7 also include detail for projects that were undertaken as part of departmental contingency project budgets. So these lists are included at the bottom of schedules that did have a contingency project budget. So contingency projects are projects that come up during the year that were not planned or budgeted for. The contingency budget allows departments to address unforeseen needs of relatively small dollar amounts in an efficient time frame. So for instance, if we were to look at attachment 3, you would see a list of projects that were undertaken by Public Works to address projects that were not planned to be undertaken during this 2022. And finally, attachment 8 includes a detailed listing of procurement activity. So this is newly added for this year. So this includes project name, successful proponent, and awarded amount for tender activity of generally projects of $50,000 or greater. So if there are any questions, I'd be pleased to address those now. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kitsos. Any questions or comments? Good job taking care of managing our tax dollars.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I could not take credit for that, of course, by myself. So we have a very cost conscious administrative team here.
Yeah, I know, but I get that. I really do. But if anything that I've learned over the years that your predecessor really drilled it into you, and I know it. But anyway, congrats. Anyway, it's always good. I'd always want to be on the black side of the ledger, not the red side. And so kudos. On his report, could I have a motion to receive the report? Or no, we need to adopt it, right? Because you gotta put the money. Yep, the whole recommendation. Moved by Councilor Houston, Councilor Dorner, support. On a motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to legislative and clerk services. Request for a noise bylaw exemption from Tabulis by Eddie. Move the recommendation. Do I support? Councilor Jobin. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Public Works and Engineering Services. We have no money left. I am only kidding. Public Works, PWES 2023-46 and request to levy 2022 municipal drain maintenance costs. Mr. Bartnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Quick summary, the bylaw will allow the town to assess out the actual cost for maintenance works that were completed in 2022 on 15 municipal drains. The cost outline in Appendix A will be assessed out to the affected landowners in the proportions contained within the current bylaws for each drain. Some of the financial breakdowns. So the total 2022 maintenance cost is just over $12,000. The OMAFR grant will cover just about $2,000 or 17%. And the town's costs are about $1,700, which is 14% of those costs. The recommendations within the report as that first one, that the report be received and that bylaw 2023-070 to levy maintenance costs for the drains attached in Appendix A be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments? On the report, moved by Deputy Mayor Becchetti, supported Councilor Higginson. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Move on to item B, under Public Works and Environmental Services 2023-59 amendment to the 2023-2027 PWS Capital Works Plan, Public Works and Transportation North Building Improvement. I think this is something that was brought forward a few months ago.
Yeah. Thank you, Your Worship. Quick summary of the report for Council. So January earlier this year, Council adopted the 2023 to 2027 PWES Capital Works Plan, which included the design in 2023 and construction in 2024 for the Public Works North building improvements. The original building is an older structure. It's had two major expansion to it over the years, the last being in 2001. There's been no significant improvements to the kitchen, washroom, change room, and employee workspace in the last 20 years. So detailed design commenced early in 2023. Two issues have arisen for administration to report back to Council this evening. The first being, we were hoping for an updated timetable for tendering. So instead of tendering out in early 2024, working closely with Dan Walicki and the Parks Department, we've been advised that we should be in a opportunity to tender later this year to see if we can get a good price for construction commencing next year. The other issue was that there are limitations on the existing electrical service. So the town's consultant has advised that the existing service into the building will not be sufficient to accommodate the renovation. Further, to accommodate the requirement for future EV charging, a service upgrade will be required. So the original estimate included full electrical distribution replacement, but it did not include an electrical service upgrade for both the new design and future EV charging. So the consultant is recommending the town include the EV charger demands and the service upgrade to save the town the cost of doing a second service upgrade when EV chargers are eventually installed. This design will not include any downstream hardware serving future EV chargers, but just the capacity and the connection point to the incoming service equipment. So the updated project estimate is $800,000, and that is an increase of $200,000 to the original budget. For the expanded scope of providing a new electrical service and upgraded panel, which will have sufficient capacity for serving future EV chargers. The next steps in the project will be to complete the detailed design and tender in late 2023, with construction commencing in early 2024. The recommendations within the report, it's recommended that the report be received and that expenditures for the expanded scope and construction costs for the Public Works and Transportation North building improvements of $600,000 for a total of $800,000 be authorized and funded from $480,000 from the building's life cycle reserve and $320,000 from the infrastructure reserve. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions or comments at this stage? Just one question too. On the EV, are you in contact with Essex Energy? We did get from NRCan, the second tranche of dollars to help subsidize some of the costs of the charging station.
I'll follow up with Mr. Walicki, and if we have not, we will reach out.
Yeah, because it's 50% grant, and you got level 1, 2, or 3 chargers because they level 3, I think it's level 3 are the real expensive ones, and so obviously if we're looking at greening our fleet and which we are, and then we need to look at least minimum number 2s. Overnight, but it'd be nice to get 50% of that money back. And we've got till the end, I think Essex Energy's got till the end of 2024. So if we can put them in reserve, that'd be a good thing.
To you, Mr. Mayor, the chargers themselves may not be a part of the installation necessarily. We are looking at doing the panel upgrades. It's the actual increasing the actual amount of capacity into the facility so that we would eventually be able to accommodate EV chargers. The current panel that's in there is, I think the word is ancient. So much of the investment will be in the space. We will look at grants with regard to EV chargers to see if they can be accommodated as part of this program.
Yeah, I think, I get the, the upgrades to the power supply to it, but if we can say, you're talking some of these chargers, like one system's $100 grand, $100,000. So if you can get 50,000, back on it, it's even if we got to put it in abeyance for a bit, that'd be good, but at least be committed, because we don't know moving forward if, the federal government, will extend any more grants, and I have a suspicion that if there is a new government, they are not going to allow it anyway. So I just don't want to leave money on the shelf. That's all. So with that, on the report, can I have a motion to adopt? Councilor Tonio, thank you. Councilor Houston moves, or support, I should say. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Public Works 2023-64 is 2360 Tecumseh Road Sidewalk Rehabilitation Tender Award.
Thank you, Your Worship.
I think I stole your class.
In January or earlier this year, again, Council is reminded that they adopted the 2023 to 2027 Public Works Capital Works Plan, which included the 2023 sidewalk repair project. Part of this project that was tendered out was a full replacement of the existing brick pavers on Tecumseh Road. You would notice that a portion of those pavers were replaced a number of years ago when the sanitary sewer project was completed. And so the intent is to replace those brick pavers eliminate some of those tripping hazards and clean up the sidewalk space there. 5 tender submissions were received on August 10th. Amico Infrastructures Incorporated was the low tender. We had a budget of $331,000. The low tender came in at $214,000 and change. So we were under budget by $116,000. The recommendations contained within the report is that the tender for the Tecumseh Road sidewalk rehabilitation in the amount of $214,458, excluding HST, be awarded to Amico Infrastructures Incorporated, and that bylaw 2023-90 be given first, second, third, and final reading to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement, satisfactory and form to the town solicitor with Amico Infrastructures Incorporated. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Move, Deputy Mayor. You support? Yeah, go ahead, Councilor.
Yep, support. And one question through you. Just a question on this, the entire scope of the project. Is it L'Esperance west all the way over, or just what is the scope of the entire replacement?
Yep, would be Tecumseh Road, essentially from Via Rail to Southfield, where the brick pavers would be. And then there are some portions going around the radius on L'Esperance Road. I know south of Tecumseh Road, there's still some remnants there. And then north of the recently completed improvement project by Via Rail, there's some brick pavers there as well.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you. And I can relay that to the BIA because it's, right in their, wheelhouse. And I know, unfortunately, that meeting had to be canceled today, but rescheduled next week. So we can advise them of that as well.
No, I think this is great. I mean, obviously, I walked that area because I live in the area, and the trippy, there's a whole host of trip hazards there. And the other thing too, Mr. Bartnick, as well, there's removal. There's a couple of trees in the area. There's stumps, and it's more or less clearing the track.
Yes, that's correct. So those remnant stumps, there's some tree grates that are left behind, and there might be 1 or 2 trees that are really located right dead center of the sidewalk. So the intent was to try to clean that up, make it AODA accessible throughout the corridor.
Now, and looking too, is some of the, years ago, they put the old street lamps and that. I mean, they are in bad shape. Even the traffic light right in the middle of the island, that L'Esperance and that. I know that part of it is the whole change in the CIP, the landscaping of the road and that. But some of those, are they looking at replacing some of those more modern and in better shape? Again, to help the our BIA in that corridor.
To the mayor, it wasn't part of the scope of the project to actually replace some of those decorative lightings, but it's my understanding that over the years, a lot of them have fallen over or have been removed. And I think what you'll find is kind of the electrical base or, the metal base. And I think the intent is to remove those as well, to remove the tripping hazard.
I'm sure snow removal are gonna be very happy to see a lot of that gone. All right, any further questions or comments? Been duly moved and supported. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. All right. One more, PWS again, 2023-64, discontinuation of the Drainage Act process, section 40 on Cunningham Drain, Brown Enclosure Extension. Mr. Bartnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to ask Jen or Christina if you can pull up attachment number 2, please. I believe it's a kind of a location map, which would give you a better context of where the drain is in relation to the property. So in July of 2021, this landowner at 12305 County Road 34 was approved for an ARU on their property. When applying for the ARU, the landowner advised that they wanted to enclose a portion of the Cunningham drain for a longer driveway. And the drain in question does run, let's call it for argument's sake, a kind of a north-south. So it would be parallel to the side property line. So it was also identified through those discussions that there would be setback requirements from the drain that would require the drain to be enclosed adjacent to the ARU as well. So in February of 2022, the landowner submitted a request for a drain improvement and enclosure to the clerk of the municipality. In April of 2022, Dillon Consulting was appointed as the drainage engineer under the Act to prepare a report. There was an on-site meeting held with the landowner in July of 2022. So fast forward a year, Dillon was preparing the draft drainage report, and on June 21st and July 6th of this year, Dillon and the town met with the landowners to discuss the draft drainage report. The landowner expressed concerns about the project's estimated cost and the engineering cost as well. And on July 17th of this year, the landowner notified administration via email they did not want to proceed with the project for the requested enclosure. Administration sought advice from OMAFRA, who recommended that the drainage engineer prepare a report under Section 40 of the Drainage Act. Section 48 of the Act still grants appeal rights to the landowner should they not agree with the Section 40 report. The landowner has been informed that if they wish to enclose a drain in the future, the Drainage Act process must restart. The Section 40 report identifies the cost of the works to date and who will be assessed. Since the request for this was for the sole benefit of the landowner, Dillon Consulting has recommended the landowner be assessed the cost to date, which are just shy of $17,000. The recommendations in the report is that this report be received and that notice of the filing of the drainage engineer's report under Section 40 of the Drainage Act be given by the clerk to the landowner at 12305 County Road 34, who had originally requested the drainage works. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now. Thank you.
All right, any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I apologize because I'm trying to open up the report in front of me and my computer is not allowing me to do it. So just to clarify, the 17,000 is all of the works, time and effort that have been done up to date on the drain, and the, oh, here it pops up, and the owner will be solely responsible for that entire cost.
Yes, that's correct. And further to some of the discussions that were taking place in June and July of this year, administration was suggesting or even recommending that, placement of the ARU or the enclosure. We were kind of questioning the limits of the enclosure. If the ARU was shifted a little bit further back, the enclosure wouldn't have to be so long. If they had shifted their driveway from the front of the property to the rear, perhaps they were able to get away from some of the enclosures as well, but they were not interested in proceeding, with kind of a refined ARU proposal or location. So really they reached back out to the town and said, thank you, but we're not proceeding. And they are fully aware of the cost to date and that they would be assessed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Hearing none. Moved by Councilor Houston, support Councilor Tonio. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. And that's the end of reports, and we'll move on to bylaws. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bylaws for council's consideration this evening for first and second reading. Bylaw 2023-070, municipal drain for maintenance costs in 2022. Bylaw 2023-089, BIA tax rate for the year 2023. Bylaw 2023-90, Tecumseh Road Sidewalk Rehabilitation Tender Award. Bylaw 23-091, to amend Bylaw 22-099, Schedule A, fees and charges related to alley closing. Bylaw 2023-092, consent to County of Essex waste management. Bylaw 2023-093, agreement with Essex Energy Corporation. bylaw 2023-094, amending agreement for bylaw 22-097 via rail grade crossing improvements, and bylaw 2023-095 Shuttleworth Drain, being a bylaw to provide for the repair improvements to the Shuttleworth Drain for first and second reading. And additionally, if council so wishes this evening, that all of the referenced bylaws, with the exception of bylaw 23095 Shuttleworth Drain, be also considered for third reading this evening.
All right, thank you. On the bylaws, two readings, Deputy Mayor Bichetti, moved by Councillor, or supported by Councillor Houston. On those bylaws, any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Then bylaws 1 through 7 are now okay for third reading. Councillor Houston and Councillor Tonio. All in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Thank you. Any unfinished business? Okay, new business. Okay. Okay. I only know the piece of new business I just want to bring forward. I just want to thank members of council who took part of the charity golf tournament yesterday, and had all those nice smiley faces up on the putting green and so forth. Helped the success of our event. So I want to extend my thanks to each and every one of you, and also administration who came out and hit some balls. Hopefully you had your money's worth and so forth. But anyway, it was a great event, well attended, and expecting that we're gonna turn over a good amount of money to the community, as we have over the 14 tournaments that we've held. And I think I mentioned it yesterday. I think we're getting close. We're well beyond $500,000 that we've turned back to the community, which has been tremendous. So again, I want to thank members of council for coming out and gracing with all those nice pictures along the putting green. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. And yeah, it was a great day. The weather was great, and people, I was fortunate to volunteer with Councillor Tonio and Councillor Dorner there, and a few others, and the people that are coming around were having a great time. And so again, it goes right to charity. So great job to the committee as well. So extend the thanks on council to the committee, your committee.
Yeah, we will. Thank you.
Just a quick thank you also to Miss Geniak's team. I know we've had some great events, the Twilight at McAuliffe, we had the Labor Day and the Corn Fest, and the Optimist doing that. I know new group, they did their best, and I know I was out of town. I got some calls on that Friday, travel on the 4-1, and Beth, you took care of that. There was a lot of frustration and anxiety in terms of that weekend might not happen. They were looking at perhaps canceling the water levels, and so your team and your staff and the crew, Public Works, whatever you guys did, you were able to help pull off that weekend, and again for the community. So to give a thanks on our behalf.
Bravo team Tecumseh. Okay, anything, any further new business? If not, then I need a motion to confirm the proceedings of our meeting this evening. Councillor Houston, thank you. Councillor Higginson at the other end. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Notice of motions. Councillor Higginson.
Thank you very much. I do have a motion, and forgive me for not knowing how to phrase this properly in these rooms, but that council authorized the authoring of a letter to the Minister of Education of the province of Ontario to express support for and encourage the exploration of a new shared cost funding model in the funding of community crossing guards.
So just for clarity on process, Councillor Higginson, you're giving notice of that motion coming to the next council meeting. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Support?
Don't need it.
Don't need it. It'll come back.
It'll come back. Okay. Any further notices? If not, then next meeting, September 26, 2023, 7 p.m. regular start. And if there's no further business, then adjournment is in order. Councilor Tonio moves and Councilor Jobin supports. All in favor, oppose if any, that is carried. Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned.